اللهم صل على الحبيب محمد يا ربي صل.
That's an interesting question. I think most of the things that are subject to misunderstanding today were probably also subject to misunderstanding previously. I think it's generally pretty consistent. I think maybe just a lot of the imagery in the hadiths. One example I give in some of my books is this idea that when in the Sahih Bukhari there's a hadith that when the devil hears the adhan, he flees wallahu durat, and he flees farting. Literally means he flees farting, right? And I think this actually there's some Muslims who read this in India in the early 20th century. This shocked them so much they actually, like the Quran only movement, people hear the Quran only movement. This actually started because of exactly that hadith like that and several other hadiths. People just got shocked by it. It just seemed stupid and silly and ridiculous to talk like that. And I think that when I read it, it was interesting because I never had that reaction because I spent a lot of time riding horses in my life. And I knew exactly what this was talking about because when you have a horse, you don't see this in movies or TV shows because it's stupid. But when you take a horse and it goes from standing still to bolting, running really fast, it will 99 out of 100 times it will fart really loudly, 1 or 2 or 3 times with each push of its hind legs. This is just completely normal. And so that was the image that came into my mind. And if you're around animals, that image wouldn't be a problem. But I think if you're you live in an urban setting and this isn't part of your life, I think you'd be shocked by that. It seems silly. But so I think that some of the life of the Prophet, the idea, for example, for us, like we can't conceive of our children dying. It's obviously it's painful, but the idea that your child could die and you wouldn't just immediately crumble to the ground and never recover for the rest of your life. And the Prophet's children died, and they were sad, but they went on with their lives. They were able to. For the majority of human history up until the early 20th century, even into the 20th century, it was completely normal for people to have very high level of infant mortality. And nowadays, because if you're well off in the United States, you can expect that most of your children are going to survive, at least for several years. I think we live in a very specific time in history now. And even things like disease, death, the reality of life with animals, life with agriculture, that's become distant to us now.
That's great. I think I would cut you guys long enough, but any parting comments or things you'd like to say to each other or to
I think we have to humanize that period of the Prophet ﷺ lived with the Sahaba. You have to humanize it in the sense that the Prophet ﷺ spoke the language of the Arabs. He lived their cultures, and he adopted it fully. And some of those expressions are just how the Arabs spoke. This is how the Arabs spoke. And as Imam Shatibi rahmatullahi ta'ala said, إن رسول الله إن هذه الشريعة بعثت بمعهود الأميين, that this Sharia had been sent with the habits and customs of the illiterate people of Arabia. And unless we have a window on the culture, unless we can really, instead of just looking at the hadith completely detached from all of that, or the action of the Sahaba detached from that, or the action of the Prophet ﷺ detached from that culture, they won't make sense to us, or we'll struggle a lot to make them make sense to us. So it is important to humanize that experience. It was a human experience in all aspects, in the sense that with its mistakes, with its heights, with every single thing. And once you look at it that way, you make that generation relatable to people. Because you tell me the Sahaba used to pray this and used to pray that, and I can't relate to them. I just can't. But I tell me that the Sahabi, called the other one, oh, you bad word, oh, you such and such. And he made a bad mistake, really bad mistake, or he fornicated, or he, and so, or he came with the desire to the Prophet ﷺ, oh, Apostle of Allah, give me a permission to do It relates to somebody who's right, and then you elevate them in the eyes of the people. You elevate the Sahaba in the eyes of the people by telling them that they bounce back from those mistakes in the most beautiful way. That's what made them great. It's not that they didn't make mistakes. No, they bounced back in the most beautiful way. Like, he insulted him, but guess what? He put his cheek on the ground and said, "Step on me." Like, look at this. You know what I mean? That's what got him to be the greatest. And also, yeah, he wanted to do, but, when the Prophet ﷺ resonated with him and so on, the way he dealt with him made sense to him, but also he gave him another cure, which is the spiritual cure. So we have to start looking at ways that are not just textual. This textual law, the loop or the lens of the law, looking at the hadith and the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. That's what. So we have to humanize that and give it more, sides and more nuance. And in that way, we can understand it better. Wallahu alam.